on civilians.
Mm.
Not deliberate attacks on civilians, it's important to make clear, but just not giving a damn, not caring whether they are or whether they aren't. Sometimes occasional deliberate attacks on civilians, but those do seem to be rare in the record. But just, you know, maybe they are, maybe they're not, but we want to shoot, and so go for it. Now, Ethan McCord and one of his fellow soldiers who were in that ground unit, they say that they were surprised it was this video that leaked, because there were many, many worse incidences, and this was a sort of everyday occurrence. It's not every day that journalists are killed. Although I did read the statistic that there have been 7 Reuters journalists killed in Baghdad, and all of them were killed by US military fire. But probably the only reason we are talking about this now is because there were 2 journalists there, and they were sort of trackable, and Reuters put in a Freedom of Information Act request. Whereas if they weren't journalists, if they were just regular citizens of Baghdad, we wouldn't even be talking about it. The material just would have been buried. There would have been no internal investigation at all, which prompted the eventual leaking.
So this is a kind of tip of an awful iceberg in many ways, isn't it? Because a war like Iraq and a war like Afghanistan, if not directed at civilians, civilians become the casualties. They're civilians' wars in a sense, aren't they?
You know, there's this old statement that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And you can see from this video that when you're in an Apache with a zoom lens that can show you people's face from 1 mile up in the sky, and you have a 30mm cannon, and you shoot, and there's no effect against you, you can't even hear the screams. And when you get back to base, there's no discipline procedures against you. That when this happens every day, for days, you know, for a year, of course, it's incredibly corrupting. And you know, these people are shot in the same way that the everyday person walks over ants on the street, because they just seem to be irrelevant. They don't complain. There's no discipline procedure. And so as the war goes along, civilians do become just something to, you know, get rid of because they're annoying or have no concern over. And while there are, while some of these civilian massacre cases do achieve prominence and then do